Hey everyone, welcome back to Cali Plants. It's me again, Mark, and today we're back at the greenhouse with another video. And I want to show you my Graptopetalum and Graptopetalum hybrids collection. So I have them set up right here. But before we get into that though, I think I want to show you some of the plants that I cannot move because some Graptopetalums here I don't want to move, I don't want to touch them, and you will see why. And I have one here actually that got a lot of ants. So first, let me just show you the plant that I cannot move, and then we're gonna be going over our other plant. Okay. So this is my Graptopetalum Paraguayense currently, our ghost plant. Okay, really looks nice. I haven't changed its pot. It's in the same pot that I planted it in first, so you can see here. And what I noticed about this plant, so it's been getting a lot of shaded light from here. The sun comes up there, but currently the sun is not coming up. It's still very much cloudy and we're still getting a lot of rain. Currently it's raining a little bit. Okay, so this one, it's not getting its warm colors because of the lack of light that we're getting. So it's not getting the full sun that it needs to turn into a more warmer color. So it's looking like it's bluish currently. And what I noticed, the new growth on this plant is has much more wider leaves compared to longer ones. So when I first received this plant, it had these long, slender leaves that are narrow shaped, but now it's more like it's stouter, it's more compact, and it has a rounder shape. It no longer has a narrow shape, it now looks rounded. So that's what the change that I noticed with this plant. So I believe that you will get more narrow leaves if you get less sun. So now that it's getting a lot more sun, the leaves are no longer that narrow, no longer that long, and they're already much more rounded and they're much more compact. So you can see that. Okay, so I watered this a few days ago and it's still kind of firm, but I'm actually very cautious not to overwater plants. I recently have some of my plants die, but so far my Graptopetalums are not bothered by that. Okay, so I will be showing you my other Graptopetalums in a bit. I also have another Graptopetalum that I don't want to move. Okay, because it's got a lot of red ants. So we're having an invasion of red ants currently at the greenhouse. So this is not a pure Graptopetalum, this is a Graptosedum Ghosty. This stem had a rot, so a lot of the leaves dropped. So this particular stem, this was actually my biggest Ghosty. So you get stem rot, so you can see the red ants are right there. And I didn't want to touch it anymore, so I let it slide and then I kept it dry, and leaves that dropped, they just started propagating, and I think the head recovered itself. So I think it saved itself because it's no longer dropping those leaves anymore. Okay, but there's a lot of red ants, so I don't want to touch that. I don't want to bother that plant. Okay, we also have some Graptopetalum propagations right here. These are propagations of my purple haze. So there's another Ghosty. Okay, so now let's go to our setup. Okay, so this might be an awkward position, but I couldn't manage to fit everything in the frame with another angle. So this will be the angle that we'll be using. So where is my hand? So here. Okay, oh, I still can't fit everything in the frame. There's actually a lot of plants here. Okay, so now I have here my Graptopetalum and hybrids collection, all of the Graptopetalums that I have here at the greenhouse. Okay, so you can see that, and we have our pure Graptopetalums here. They're already looking lush. Okay, so I think we're gonna start with that, with our Graptopetalums. I recently featured my Graptopetalums in another video. I think it was a few months ago, and they've already grown a lot since then. And now I wanted to show you an update, and also people are still watching that video and still commenting on that, so they're requesting an update. So here it is. Okay, here is my Graptopetalum mendozae. So you can see it's already got a full lush plant right there. It's already a full plant. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot of rosettes already, a lot of heads, and it's got this trailing stem that has a lot of roots. I think I might need to cut off the roots right here, and you can see that it's a really lush, really beautiful plant. It's already produced a lot of rosettes, so you can see that really nice. Okay, So as I said before, I think I planted it in a clay pot before and it was not doing very well. So I recently changed the pot into a plastic pot. So now that it's retaining much more water, I think that's what helped the plant to grow a little bit more. So compared with our thicker leaved succulents, compared with our bigger rosette types like you're seeing here, the mendozae needs a little bit more watering than usual. And for now, since we're getting into autumn season, here at the Philippines, we're already in our rainy season. We really don't get autumn and winter temperatures right here in the Philippines because we're living in a tropical climate. So now that we're getting a lot of rain, the temperatures are also dropping. So you might see a little more growth when it comes to your Graptopetalums, just as long as you're not overwatering them. Because if you still overwater them, and with the cold temperature and the lack of sunlight that we're getting, it's still possible to get rot on your plants. So you have to be extra mindful of watering them. You have to water them, I think for me, personally, if you're getting a lot of cloudy season, cloudy weather, I think you should water for about 3 days after the pot has dried up. So you let the pot dry up and then you leave it dry for about 3 to 4 days before you water again, just to make sure that the plant doesn't get rot, it doesn't drop its leaves. So that's what I'm currently doing. Currently, the pot is still dry, but you can see that even if it's dry, the leaves are not wrinkling because the temperatures are not that hot. So the plants doesn't need a lot of water. So I actually leave this dry for a little while longer. And once I see that the leaves have some wrinkling on them, I will probably start watering. But you can still see that the leaves are still shiny. They're not rushing to get more water. So they're not really that thirsty. So I will leave them dry. But if the temperatures are still colder and if the plant already needs to be watered, if you water them, they will push out a lot more growth. Compared when it was summer, when they were drying very quickly and then you're constantly watering them. If you water them back at summer, they will not be producing a lot of growth even if they get thirsty very quickly. But right now, during the colder months, during the colder season, if you water them, if they're really thirsty and even if you water them infrequently, they will push out a lot more growth. Okay, so we have our next Graptopetalum here. This is my mirinae. I'm actually very careful handling this plant. I actually dropped a few leaves while I was moving it right here. So what I do with the leaves, I just plop them back into the soil. You can see that. Okay, and there's already some sprouts from the leaves. There's already some sprouts from the leaves. Those are already leaf propagations. So I think I might want to separate this soon. You can see a lot of air roots on that. So that's because the plant is getting a lot of humidity. So it's currently very humid in our area because it's raining a lot. Okay, so for those ones, if you don't want that look, you can remove those roots. You can cut it off, or you can just take out the head that has roots and then you can reroot it. You can plant it back onto another potting mix and you will get another plant. So for now, I think I'm gonna wait for this to dry out and then I will water it. And once it has some growth on it again, I will be cutting some of the stems and I will be planting that so we get more Graptopetalum mirinae here. So for this one, I believe this is a very fast grower. Since it has these small leaves, it doesn't need a lot of energy to produce new leaves. And even if it drops a few leaves in your handling, it will still produce a lot of leaves to replace that. So it doesn't look very bare even if you drop some of its leaves. But still, I would be very careful when handling this plant since the leaves are thick and they're small, so they can drop very easily out of the plant. And I think it's a really beautiful one. Currently, in the temperatures that we have, it is the same color as my mendozae, and I believe that this one is actually a hybrid of the mendozae with a Graptopetalum pentandrum. So it has the same coloring currently, but I believe that if you get colder temperatures in your area, you might get this to color into pink. It might show some pink tones. So that's how beautiful the mirinae is. It's a faster grower compared to the mendozae, but currently with the care that I'm doing, I'm watering them at around the same time. So if I water my mendozae, I water this also. And I think that they can handle to be watered at the same time, even if they have a different leaf shape. So it can retain some water for a little while, but if your plant already has a lot of bare stems, if your plant doesn't have a lot of leaves, I would recommend that you water it more frequently. But if your plant is already lush like this, it already has a lot of leaves, then you might want to water less frequently, because with more leaves it can retain more water. So if the leaves are still plump, Just don't water it very frequently. But still, I would say that this plant is much more thirsty compared with our big rosette type of Graptopetalums. So this one still needs to be watered more frequently than your other large size Graptopetalums, since it's a small leaf one. So that's what I would recommend. Okay, I have here my new Graptopetalum Ellen currently right here. So this one recently adjusted to my care. So it took a little while before it acclimated well. Okay, you can see that. So this one actually took a little while before it acclimated well because I think the potting mix that I first did for it, it wasn't good. So now I replaced the potting mix with my new version, with my new mix. It already has alnus compost in it, and now it's already producing these thick leaves, and you can see that it's gotten a little more shinier on the tips on it. So that means that the plant is absorbing water, and it actually also got stem rot on one of its heads. Okay, so there's that. I'm rooting this back up. So if you remember, or if you're here at the unboxing of this plant, it used to have a long stem like that, and that stem was always droopy, and it got stem rot, so I had to cut it off, and now I'm rerooting the head back in. So yeah, there's that. So I will, okay, I dropped it. Okay, so I will have to be careful when watering this plant, because compared with our mendozae and with our mirinae, the Ellen can retain a little bit more water. So if you overwater it, it can tend to get rot, especially if your plant still has these thin stems. So if you have those thin stems on your plant, then it might be more prone to stem rot compared to if you're getting corking. So corking stems on succulents make them a lot more sturdier when it comes to overwatering. So there's that. There's a corking on the stem on that. Okay, so it's no longer a thin stem. Okay, this one is still a thin stem. You can see that the color is pale, so that means that the plant is still not corking, but on this one it's already corking on this stem. So that means it's much more sturdier. It won't get rot very quickly. So that's what I would say on corking succulents. If you manage to get your mendozae mirinae to cork, then it will be smooth sailing from that point on. If you manage to get it to cork, it will just produce new growth very quickly. You don't have to worry about it getting rot. So that's what I'm doing with my Graptopetalums. Okay, so now we have our Graptopetalum Purple Delights. I recently featured this in a care guide video. This is the stress version. Okay, I recently watered it. So now I'm hoping that it will produce quicker growth again. And this is the same plant, okay, that is not stressed, that is actively growing. So you can see that the rosette is already big enough. This is the same plant. I took this head at the same stem, from the same stem, from a plant that I had months ago. So this had been with me for about a year or more. So this is one of my older plants actually, and this used to come from, okay, do I have that here, the original head? Okay, so here, this is their original head. So on this one, you can see that the center of the rosette already has some more fuller farina. That means the plant is growing again. So I'm gonna be watering this a little bit more frequently right now. Okay, so we have that. What else? What other Graptopetalum do we have? Okay, so we have our super balm right here. Carefully. Okay, this is our super balm. It's different with our Purple Delight. You can see it's a comparison. Okay, so on this one, on the super balm, it has a flatter rosette. On our Purple Delight, it can have these rounded leaves. So it's kind of different, but I could think that the Purple Delight is probably a hybrid of the super balm. Okay, probably some type of hybrid. So this is a pure species. Okay, we have that. So our super balm, okay, currently this small one, these are actually two plants that I co-planted in one pot. So this small one is already absorbing water, so it's got some thickness on it, but the taller one is not yet rooted very well. So I have that, but it's still attached to its stem, to its potting mix. So that means it's establishing already, and I'm gonna be waiting for this one to plump back up again. But I'm careful not to water them too early because this one is still very plump. So I'm gonna have to wait for that to dry out a little bit before I will water this pot, because if you water it too early and if the other plant is still firm, then that might be a problem. It might get rot. So that's what you have to be mindful of when you're co-planting your succulents, no matter what variety they are. If they're separate plants, if they're the same variety, but if one is already established and the other is not yet, so you have to be careful about watering the two of them. Okay, so right now, since we're getting a lot of rain, they don't get a lot of heat stress, so you don't have to actually rush watering them. Okay, so now we have our other propagation of my Graptopetalum Paraguayense. You can see that. Okay, so we have that. What else? Okay, so I think that was about all the pure Graptopetalums that I have. Now we're gonna get into our Graptopetalum hybrids, and I think that I'm gonna start with the more common ones. So this is my fed Ives. So you can see it hasn't produced a lot of new growth. It's still about the same size when I first showed this to you. Okay, so it's still about the same size. So now what I think I'm gonna be doing is, when the season gets a little bit more sunnier, when the days get more sunnier, I will probably be repotting this into a alnus compost mix, potting mix that I make. With the mix that has alnus compost, I believe that my plants produce a lot more growth very quickly. So this is in a pure carbonized rice hull mix. I think I have some amount of vermicast in it, but it's not doing very well for the plant. It's not really very well for the plant. I have much more growth, much more successes with my mix that has alnus compost in it. So I would really recommend you get some alnus compost for your plants. Okay, so there's that. We also have our Harry Watson right here. Okay, so you can see it already has some growth on it. It has dropped a lot of leaves when I was replanting it into this pot, because it used to be in a smaller pot. So I planted it in a bigger pot and it dropped a lot of leaves. So now I'm just trying to let it grow a little more, and then I'm going to be beheading it soon. Okay, so there's that. We have our Harry Watson right here. That is the same plant, but it's a propagation. Okay, currently I believe this is the biggest propagation that I have here in the greenhouse. Okay, we're getting a lot of light right now. Okay, so this is currently the biggest deep propagated succulent that I have, I think. Okay, so yeah, this is the longest deep propagation that I had. The mother plant that I took this propagation from already died. So yeah, and this is the remains of it, and you can see that the rosettes are already getting wider. So yeah, I'm very hopeful that it will produce a lot more growth. During the summer times, it wasn't doing a lot. It was in the same pot, but it wasn't producing a lot of growth. So now that we're getting into much more cooler weather, it's already producing some growth. The leaves are getting wider. Okay, we have that. What else? What else? Okay, let's go to our Titubans. So I have two pots of Titubans right here. This is my original Titubans. The first one, I got this from BGC for about a few months ago, and you can see that there's already layering on the leaves of the plant. So I have been keeping the leaves on the plant. I haven't been propagating it a lot, but I already have some propagations of this plant here at the greenhouse, and now I'm just letting this one grow out. So I'm hoping that we get this stacking size of Graptoveria Titubans. This actually is a Graptoveria, so I'm hoping that I will see a lot more growth on that, and probably will behead it once it gets too big. Okay, we have our other Titubans right here. This used to be a three-headed plant, but the other head got stem rot and died, so now we only have two heads left. Okay, so you can see, compared with that one I got it as a compact shaped plant. This one was already etiolated when it came, so it already has some stem. You can see some stem on that, but the new growth, hopefully it will stay compact and it will not show a lot of stem later on. But I believe that once this gets too tall, I will be beheading it, since we have a lot of stem showing on that, and I don't want to see that constantly. But you can see that the rosette at the upper part of the plant is already getting very compact, really beautiful. Okay, it's getting very bright right now, but still very rainy. So we have our Graptophytum supreme. This is a cross between the Graptopetalum and the Pachyphytum. So you can see this is already wide leaf, a wide rosette type of succulent. It doesn't have a compact shape on its rosette, and you can see it's still in an older potting mix, so it hasn't produced a lot of growth, but it's a very slow grower. The Graptophytum supreme, once you manage to establish it, it doesn't get thirsty very quickly. It stays stressed, so I'm not seeing a lot of growth on this one. But I have some propagations on this one that is already producing a lot of growth. So this is the same plant, but a leaf propagation. You can see with the alnus compost I have, it's producing a lot of growth and it's getting a lot more leaves on its rosette. So really the alnus compost, I would recommend that. This is the same plant that has an alnus compost potting mix. So this is another leaf propagation of Graptophytum supreme. Okay, so we have that. We have here our Graptoveria lovely rose. So you can see that, really nice. This one is an older plant of mine and it's already producing wider leaves, so that means it's actively growing again. And this one is a newer plant and the rosette is staying compact and it's producing much more leaves at the inner part of the head. So you can see that the head is getting wider, but it's not getting taller anymore. And probably if it gets too heavy at the top, then I will be beheading it. You can see that the stem right here is so big and it's got another pop growing right here and it's got a bloom stalk right there. Okay, this is one that got stem rot recently, so I replanted it and it's getting firmer and it's producing new leaves, so that I think that will be establishing soon. And we have a leaf propagation of a lovely rose right here. So for the lovely rose, you have to be very mindful of the light that it gets, because it tends to drop a lot of leaves very quickly if it gets some shade and if it gets overwatered. So you have to be very careful with your lovely rose. But I think that the lovely rose is a hybrid of the Echeveria rose queen. So you can see there, don't they look the same? This is a pure Echeveria and this is the Graptoveria. So I think that this one is a hybrid of this one. So this was probably crossed with a Graptopetalum Paraguayense probably, and it get this result. This is the resulting child of that hybridization, but it's not documented in any way on any website, I think, that I've searched before. So I hope that they will update their documentation on this plant, because this is a really beautiful, really nice hybrid, the lovely rose. Okay, what else? We have our Bainessi right here. So you can see it's growing a little bit slowly, but it's still pushing through. So we've got a dry leaf right there. Okay, so the leaves are getting longer, the rosette is getting wider. It wasn't reaching the outside of this pot when I planted it, but now it's getting wider than the pot that it's in. So I think that we're seeing a lot more growth on that. So I'm hopeful that we can propagate this Bainessi soon. But compared with our Echeverias, really, Graptopetalums are much more faster growers. So we have that. We have our Graptoveria. Is this Graptoveria, right? Debbie, right here. This is a cross with Amethysinum and some Echeveria of some type. So this is the Debbie, and it's producing a lot more growth. Okay, so yeah, we have that. We also have here my Graptoveria Phantom. So it already has a lot more wider rosette compared when I last showed it to you. So you can see there. So it's really nice. This is a reliable plant. I would recommend it. The Graptoveria Phantom. It's a very easy one and it produces a lot of leaves very quickly, and it has a wider rosette. It has a bigger leaf compared with our other Graptopetalums, and it grows very compact. Even if you give it less sun, it doesn't etiolate very quickly. So that's what I would recommend. We have our Darly Sunshine right here. It's probably a Graptosedum variety of some type. This is kind of related with our Ghosty. And this one, the Darly Sunshine, has a more narrow leaf shape on it. And we have already our bloom stalk right here that is still not yet blooming, but I'm hoping that it will soon. So it kind of etiolates, and it's kind of a trailing plant once you manage to grow it consistently. Okay, so we have that. We have our Topsy Debbie right here at the middle. So this is also sold as an Echeveria Cupid. So it's still pushing out growth, but it's very slow compared with our other Graptopetalums. I think the Amethysinum influence on the plant, because this is a hybrid of Amethysinum. So the Amethysinum influence makes the plant grow slower. But I'm hoping that once I manage to acclimate this was actually replanted in this This was actually newly planted in this spot. So once I managed to acclimate it and it's established already, I believe that it will just produce new growth very quickly, real soon. Okay. So we have that. Yeah. This is my Graptoveria Bridgette. This is another reliable variety that I would recommend. This is a hybrid with Graptopetalum and Echeveria of some type. So it kind of looks like an apus, but it behaves very differently with our Echeveria because it grows very quickly, and I didn't have any problem with acclimating this plant. And you can see that the rosette still stays very compact. So it was already a big plant when I got it, but now it's still growing a lot more bigger because it wasn't as full as the pot that it's in when I first planted it, but now it's getting wider than the pot, really. So I would recommend the Graptoveria Bridgette if you can find this variety with your seller. Okay, so there's that. What else? So I think that's about it. Okay, we also have our Graptoveria Purple Dream here. This is one of my older plants. I recently repotted it in my alnos mix, and you can see that the leaves are already producing some shininess on them. So I think that it rooted up very nicely on this one. So I'm hoping that I will get this to clump very soon. So I have also my Amethystinum right here. This is an update. So it used to be 2 heads, but now I only have 1. So it's not really looking really nice right now. So I think that I'll be buying more of these. Amethystinum really is a sensitive plant for me because it has these thick leaves. So it doesn't need to be watered very frequently. So I think I overwatered it and the other stem just got rot and it died off. So yeah, we have that. You have to be mindful of your Amethystinum. I think that it was planted in my older potting mix, so it wasn't doing very well. I will be buying a new one and then I will be planting it in my new potting mix. So I think that's about all the Graptopetalums and the hybrids that I have here. So if you really like these plants, I hope you get an idea on what you should be buying next season. Right now, currently with the rainy season that we're having, I don't recommend that you buy a lot of plants. So you have to be very careful because we're getting a lot of rain. So probably during next spring, you can buy more Graptopetalums again and they will establish very easily. But now, currently, if you already have your Graptopetalums and they're already established, you can expect a lot more growth since we're getting cooler temperatures here in the Philippines. So I think that's about all the plants that I will be showing you today, all the tips that I will be sharing with you. If you really like that, please hit the thumbs up and please subscribe to the channel to support it. And I will be seeing you on the next video. Bye-bye.